Okay, I got kicked out. I got kicked off. That's not cool. But I got kicked off. It's connected. Okay, I got kicked off for some reason. So, your perception is your reality. And because how you see a thing determines how you respond to it, and how you respond often reveals the conditions of the heart. So, the more I allow myself to be quiet and just listen to people, the more I understand. Okay, I'm going to try this again. I got kicked out. So we're going to try this again. Okay. Let's try this again. Satan is busy. He don't want me to bring y'all this lesson. Okay, so I'm going to start over. So, your perception is your reality. And tonight's conversation is simple, but it's not light. It requires honesty, maturity, and a willingness to look within. And because how you see things determines how you respond to it. And how you respond often reveals the condition of your heart. So, the more I have allowed myself to just be quiet and truly listen to people, the more I understand them. Listening exposes how people think. The way a person thinks becomes the reality in which they live in. And I had to learn this, that it didn't matter if I could prove something to someone until that person was ready to receive the truth. It was just noise. Because proof without openness changes nothing. It will change one thing. And so let's go to the scriptures. First group I wanted to look at was the Pharisees and the Sadducees. In Matthew chapter 12, verses 38 through 41, and also in Matthew chapter 16, verses 1 through 4, we know that the Pharisees and Sadducees are the religious leaders. They knew the law. They saw the miracles. They witnessed healing, deliverance, and fulfillment of prophecy. Yet, they kept asking Jesus for another sign. Not because they lacked evidence, but because they lacked humility. Jesus called them wicked and adulterous. They weren't morally wicked or adulterous because, they were living the law, right? They were living in their mind, book, chapter, verse. But they were spiritually wicked. They were spiritually adulterous. They were committed to being right, but not committed to being transformed. So the lesson that I want to point out with those two groups is a closed heart will never be satisfied with proof. So no matter how much you try to prove something to them, they're just not going to be satisfied. Pride will always demand one more explanation. I need one more explanation. And so we see the same thing with Pharaoh in Exodus chapters 7 through 12. Pharaoh saw the plagues. He saw the warnings. He heard the warnings and he experienced pauses of mercy. He would cry out, tell your God to stop this, and God would. Yet that still wasn't enough. Scripture said his heart was hardened. So the lesson here is experiencing God's power does not guarantee surrender. Truth can be acknowledged and still rejected. Then you had the rich young ruler in Mark chapter 10, verses 17 through 22. He ran to Jesus. He followed the commandments and he respected the truth. But when truth required release, he walked away sorrowful. Here's the lesson. Some people reject truth not because it's false, but because it costs too much. Some folks just not going to do it because it just costs too much. And that's just the reality. It costs too much. Then you have now this is an inward part that I was talking about. When you have the spirit to want to prove yourself right. There are times, and there are many of us that are stuck right there. That we want to prove everything right. We want to prove people, even in the scriptures, I'm going to prove to you that Jesus is real. I want to prove to you. We don't have to do that. We just don't. And the spirit of proving yourself can sound like, if I explain it better, they'll get it. If I show evidence, they will change. If I defend myself, I'll finally have peace. But scripture gives us clarity. It tells us in Proverbs chapter 9, verses 7 through 8, do not correct a scoffer, or they will hate you. That's deep right there. They will hate you. But correct the wise and they will love you. You got to know who you can present truth to. Because the very people that you're trying to present truth to, if they can't receive it, if they're those scoffers, they're going to hate you. So peace does not come from being understood. Peace comes from obedience. And so choosing peace over being right, Jesus himself walked away often. He walked away when he was in Nazareth. They rejected him and he walked away. He didn't force them. He didn't say, you're going to believe, I'm going to prove to you that I'm Christ. I'm going to prove to you I'm the Son of God. He didn't do that. He walked away. He walked away from the crowd when they wanted more signs, but not surrender. He disengaged from leaders who argued instead of listened. And in Matthew chapter 10, verse 14, it says, if anyone will not welcome you or listen to your words, leave that place and shake the dust off your feet. Walking away is not weakness. Walking away is wisdom. And so but we have a contrast, because there are some people who want to receive the truth. They just need to believe. They need to see it to believe. And so that made me think about Thomas. And Thomas is often labeled as the doubting, as he was the doubter. He was doubting Thomas. But scriptures paint a different picture. Thomas didn't mock Jesus. He didn't argue about the resurrection theology. He did not resist the belief. He simply said, if I see, I will believe. And when Jesus appeared, he did not rebuke Thomas. the way he rebuked the Pharisees. Jesus met him right there, just like he'll meet us right here, right where you are. He will meet you, and he met him. And he invited Thomas to touch his wounds. Why? Because Thomas' heart was open. The Pharisees asked for signs to debate. Thomas asked for a sign to believe. And when truth was presented, Thomas received it immediately. And in John chapter 20, verse 28, it said, he responded and said, "My Lord and my God." He acknowledged who Jesus was. So the key point here is open hearts receive revelation. Closed hearts demand endless evidence. So your perception is your reality. Thomas was willing to change his perception once truth appeared. The Pharisees were not. That's the difference. Your perception becomes your reality when your heart is teachable, your pride is surrendered, and your desire is truth, not validation. Peace flows where openness lives. And so then that means we got to talk about, when is it time to walk away? It's time to disengage when. And when I say walk away, it can be just simply disengaging. We're going to disengage from this conversation. Don't mean you got to walk away from the person. You got to kick the person out your life. That's not what I'm saying. But it's time to disengage when the conversation turns into a debate, not dialogue. Truth is met with defensiveness, not reflection. You feel the need to perform instead of rest. Peace leaves every time you show up. God does not require you to bleed for people who refuse to heal. Walking away is not rejection, it's alignment. We see examples of when Jesus walked away. You just gotta sometimes just walk away. And so in my closing thoughts, you are not called to convince resistant hearts. I actually, this topic came up because I met someone that stated that they were agnostic and asked that I have an issue with that. And, instead of saying, oh yes, I chose to listen. I chose to hear the person out because I wanted to understand that they even know what the word was that they were using. And I wanted to see if it was a place for me to offer a level of a teaching point, or was this person too far gone for my ability? Not for Jesus, not for God, because he can touch anybody. We see that on the road to Damascus, right? But Monique's ability may not be able to touch that person. And so I had to just come to myself, and I had to be honest with myself. And that's where this, like I said, this lesson came from. So again, in my closing reflection, you are not called to convince resistant hearts. You are called to steward your peace. Your peace is your responsibility. Some people do not need more proof. They need a willing heart. And when I'm talking to you and you're telling me that there's no proof and about Jesus, and they're okay. Yes, sir. I love you from afar. I pray God's mercy on you. And when the heart is not present, choosing peace over being right is not failure, it's maturity. So I just wanted to bring that to you, that sometimes some people, we know that the sky is blue. But if a person's perspective is the sky is I don't know, purple, there's no proof that you can show that person. And the same go for the scriptures. And the same even go for you. There are some people who already have a prejudgment of you based on one thing. You can do one thing wrong, and that one thing can just throw everything else out the door. It don't matter how much you try to beg that person to see you different. They're just not going to be able to. And you got to be okay with that that's their perception. And that becomes their reality. There's nothing you can do. So I hope this touched you guys. I do apologize for all the technical difficulties. My phone and internet just didn't want to speak to each other today. But hopefully God still was honored in all that I was trying to present to you. So have an amazing day. And I pray that I will talk to you Christmas Eve. That's our next chat. All right, God bless you all. Bye. Love you. Bye.